Hey guys, Corey here today with Jillibean Soup, and I'm going to show you how to make a unique background using stamps and a resist technique. Not only do you want your photos for this kind of project, but you're going to want stamps, lots of stamps. So what I did was I went through every single stamp set I have of Jillibean Soup, and I pulled out all of them that have even one little stamp that I might use. Then on a piece of newsprint, I just draw a heart because that's the shape that I want my background to be in. And I'm just going to cut out that center piece so that I've got a nice kind of border to keep all the stamps in. I keeps the shape. Without that, it could get a little bit all crazy, but this little guide is really going to help just kind of keep everything in line. I did put a little adhesive in the corners, but it's this adhesive that when it dries, it's only a temporary adhesive, so I was able to move that around. And then I did connect these wings thinking I needed to protect those sides, but that actually, I didn't need this. It actually ended up being a bigger pain in the neck than anything else. So what I'm doing is I'm going to just start stamping on my background. I'm stamping with Versamark. So it's a clear kind of sticky type of, I don't know if you consider it an ink, but it's an ink. And I just stamp directly on the white cardstock with that. I did make sure that my cardstock was smooth cardstock because I get a better stamped image. I'm not a great stamper, and so the smooth cardstock does help just a little bit. And then I'm going back through and I'm stamping little banner pieces on, and you'll just see what I'm doing is I'm going to start in this one corner and I'm just going to stamp all kinds of different shapes and stuff up there. The clear Versamark is exactly what you need for embossing. I'm sure that there's other things that you can emboss with, but I've always used the Versamark. And since also I am going to be using clear embossing powder on this, I definitely want whatever sticks the embossing powder to the paper to also be clear. I've got some stamped images down now, and so I'm going to go ahead and put some embossing powder on that area. I don't want to go too long because if it dries then the embossing powder doesn't stick, or I could end up smudging things. So I do want to keep going back here and there to go ahead and get my images embossed on there. I use my heat gun and it doesn't take very long, and once that I've actually embossed it, I know now you can see it. The other thing about the smooth cardstock is it does show it when I could see it much better. I know it's not coming through in the video quite as well, but I could actually see the stamped image very lightly. And then once the embossing powder gets on there, it's got a nice shine to it, so it makes it a lot easier to see. But the textured cardstock, it's a lot harder to see the image is what I noticed, because I did test it all out beforehand. So I'm just going to keep working around my page and getting all of these images all through the heart. I want all of them embossed. Now you can kind of see I've got a bunch more images on there. I've been using all kinds of stamps, just getting it really full so that the shape of the heart is still behind there in stamped images once I take that newsprint away. And as I go, I've just been then embossing it as I go. The paper, because of the heat gun, does get a little bit ripply, but it's not too bad. It doesn't keep it from me being able to continue. And when you try this, don't get worked up if it gets a little bit rippled, just from the heat. The heat changes the texture a little bit of the cardstock. It'll be just fine. So this is one of those type of stamps where stamping projects that perfection actually, I don't know if it really makes it even better, because sometimes little imperfections actually make it really neat. So I'm just going back through and finishing up the background here, of doing more stamps and a little bit more embossing. What I do notice is that once I get to a certain point, that right hand side of my heart didn't have a very good edge up on the top, and so I do have to go back in and just add a few more stamps. Even though I thought I was done, I wasn't. I had to go back in. I just lay my template back down so I know where I'm going and where I need to stamp more, and I just went back in and put a few more little things here and there on the background, because I do want it to look like it's a heart even when the newsprint's not there. So once this is all done, I did actually find that I had missed a couple of spots, and so then I went back and embossed those. And actually, my Versamark had actually already dried, so I do have a couple spots on there later on that don't actually have embossing powder, but it all works out. Now that I've got everything embossed on my background, it's time to use watercolors to show the resist. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm just putting water around the edge of my heart. That way I can get in there and add some color, and the color just kind of spreads on its own. And I'm going to start with this blue and put it around the outside edge because I am going to add other colors to it, but I wanted to start with that blue. So all I'm doing is adding a little bit of blue to my paintbrush, and it just easily spreads because of the water that's already there. You can see that the embossing has resisted the paint, and you can see the images, the stamped images coming through. So I just think it looks really cool. The hardest part I had was trying to decide whether or not I was going to use cool colors for this heart or if I was going to go with pink. I know it's a heart, so I was like, oh, it needs to be pink, but for some reason I just did not want to make this pink. Sometimes, I don't know about y'all, but with that much red or that much pink on a page, sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I like it so much. I don't know, but this worked out really good. Plus, I decided I was going to use the black and white photo, and then I can really use any colors that I want. So I'm using a little bit of yellow just in this one area, and as much water as you want to add, and it'll make it blend in more. Add few little sprinkles here and there, and then once it was all dry, I did run it through my sewing machine and stitched in with aqua colored thread around the heart a few times to really make it kind of pop out. Now I'm adding just a couple different pattern papers just to the edge, so I did trim off about a half an inch off one side of my paper so that it would still be 12 by 12 once it was done. And I'm just going to add these two papers right to the left-hand edge. Once I get them adhered down just lightly, I will go back in and use my sewing machine to stitch them down really securely. Plus, I really like the look of the stitching on the side of the page. Now that those are stitched down, it's time for me to start to get my photo and to really start embellishing. I just used one of these shaker tags to start, and I want to go ahead and put that underneath my photo. It kind of pops the photo up a little bit and then also makes it look kind of cute because it's got this little tag. And then I'm going to use an A out of these Super Celebration wood veneers for my daughter's initial. I do like to put my daughter's initials on the page. And I just happened to have out some of the Happy Hues paint, and so I went ahead and just painted that because it definitely needed a little bit of color. With all of this color in the background, to just have that one wood veneer shape just didn't look right. So I'm adding a little bit extra of this pattern paper just to give a little bit of color underneath the photo, make it stand out a little bit. And then I'm going to go through all the different pea pod parts from the different collections and just pull out things that are actually, that just match the colors. The thing that I found the most that matched was the light blue color is almost kind of like a aqua color, and I'm just going to pull out those types of things and add them around my photo. The background has a lot going on, so I don't need a ton of embellishments, just a few here and there. Now that little alligator thing, I love that, and what's funny is my dog, her name is Dear Lizzie, but we call her Lizard half the time, and so I just felt like it was kind of cute. It was kind of the perfect way to show off her. So I'm just embellishing around the page with all the different little things that I've pulled out of the pea pod part packages. Say that a few times fast. Anyhow, I'm just embellishing around with all of these things. I've got the plus signs, I've got some stars, a couple little crowns, and two little birds that face each other, and then a couple of little flowers. I'm just getting all of that down before I go ahead and put my title on. But just a quick little story, this dog and this girl, They are just best friends. We got dear Lizzie as a puppy, and these two have just been inseparable ever since she came home. So it's been really fun to watch them and just how much they care about each other. It's funny how dogs will pick favorites, I think, just as much as people will. So um, my daughter and dear Lizzie are definitely best friends. I did have some trouble trying to figure out where I wanted to put those little birds, so I decided that I would go ahead and put my title down first. And I thought it was fitting. I was going to actually name this page BFFs, um, but then it just wasn't a big enough title, and so I had to change it up and do something that had just a little bit more, uh, a few more letters to it to take up a little bit more space. And honestly, Best Buds, I think, really it sums up these two better than BFFs. Once I get my title down, I will go and run my sewing machine over it. I did change the thread to white so it didn't stand out quite so much, but I've just learned my lesson about thinking that the adhesive on any type of sticker lasts for forever, and have lots and lots of little letters floating at the bottom of my page protectors. I always try and stamp the pages, and I did stamp this on the day that I took the picture instead of the day that I created the page. And then just a little bit of journaling needs to go on there about the two of them being best buds. I did it in pencil because I don't have a gray pen right now, and I felt like black was just a little bit too harsh of a color. So I will have to probably go back over that at some point, but I do need to go get myself a gray pen. And that's it. So here's my page. I hope you enjoyed the technique. It's really fun. I definitely would recommend trying it and putting all the stamps to use instead of just hoarding them and hanging on to them and never knowing when you're going to get to use them. So that's it. Thanks so much for stopping by. You can always see more at jillibeansoup.typepad.com, or you can find me creatively at Instagram at CorrieJ_creative. Have a great day.